It's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Welcome back to the farm. Today we're going to do a quick little video on pasture seed mixes. So I am no expert by any shape or means, but I want to show you what I am doing in order to help my pastures here. First of all, if you need to know what I've got going on, you can read down in the description about what type of farm we are. We do daily rotational moves here in March. It is now March 15th here in Ohio. I am in southern Ohio, about 10 minutes north of the Ohio River, bordering Kentucky. So here in our farm, we have fairly decent weather for the year. I get about 90 days of snow per year, but you can kind of figure out I'm in 6B, figure out where I'm at if this recommendation is going to work for you in your area. If you're in Texas, this will not work. Today, we're going to talk about the problems I had when I bought this farm. This farm has only been purchased by us for 2 years. It was in pasture prior. It was a cattle farm prior to us coming, but there was some neglect as far as the last few years. The guy did some really good things, but the pasture needed some work, to say the least, as long as the fence and barns and everything else that we've done here in our prior videos. But today, we're going to talk about what we're doing to fix our pasture, the seed mix, where we got it, and what type of seed we're adding. And then we're going to talk about at the beginning of this video what we have now and why I'm making changes. So that's all coming up in today's video. So this farm was not rotationally grazed for about 5 years. It was open grazed, from my understanding, and I may be a little bit wrong, but he tried to rotational graze for several years, and it was set up to that. There's pretty decent as far as fence structure. I would have done it differently, but this farm was set up to rotationally graze. So there's one main fence that goes down the center, and then there's outer perimeter fence. There's also a 25-foot alleyway that goes from the very back of our farm all the way back up to our barns back up there, going out the outside. So I can essentially enter any paddock system from anywhere on the farm by using that alley. That alley is not very good grazing. I get about 3 to 4 days of grazing a year out of those alleys, but it's a mode of transportation for the cows, if you get that. Onto the grass. He had some paperwork for the seed that was here that he put down, and then he had some, upgraded where he had frost seeded or whatever, and it was about 10 years old. So I would say for 10 years, this farm has not had any seed on it. But because it was open grazed and not rotationally grazed, the management of the grass has deteriorated away from a good mix. So we are doing 100% grass-fed beef. We need a high legume pasture. We need good protein out here. Cows will not fatten on strictly fescue. That's the first thing. If you have straight fescue, it's a good grass. Holds up well towards the winter. It's good for the winter paddocks, your stockpiling grass. It's a great grass. You need to worry about endophytes. You need to go to somebody in your local area, an expert, and ask them about that. But once the fescue is in, it's hard to tell if it's endophyte free or not at that point. This farm is primarily fescue, like 99% fescue. I talked to the guy that was here before and asked, why'd you put down the fescue? And he said, I never put down an ounce of that seed. It just blew in. So I'm not sure how it got here. There's not pastures next to me. I mean, they're miles away to the next pasture. Most of the guys are row crop farmers around me. So as far as fescue pasture seed, it's naturally in the soil here and it naturally came up, or it had been spread at some point in time throughout the life of this farm and it came back. To be that overwhelming, it had to be spread down for me in my mindset. So as we go forward, I've got to change the mix that I need. I've got to change the mix of this farm. So one thing I did is, last year was our first year of grazing, I beat this farm down hard. I grazed it tight. You can see the 4 to 6 inches of grass that we have left here in March. I grazed this thing down to the nubs, trying to beat down as much fescue as I could so that my frost seeding would benefit me more now. I'm also using my cattle right now to step in this seed. So we're gonna graze it down even tighter and have them step in the seed, trying to eliminate or cover or, overwhelm the fescue somewhat. Will it work? I've had people that said no. I've had people that said yes. I don't know. You're going to see if you keep following along and you like and subscribe. But ultimately, fescue is hard to kill. A lot of people have told me, plow it under, start fresh, skip a whole year of cattle farming. I'm not going to do that. I don't want to plow. I don't want to kill the microbiology here. There was fertilizer spread on this in the past, but luckily for me, there has not been a lot of chemicals. So he sprayed a little bit around the barns, it seems, but this farm has not been sprayed with Roundup and killed. There's not a heavy load here, which is very good for us, and one of the reasons I purchased this farm. Last year, during our grazing of this fescue, we found a little bit of orchard grass here and there, spots here and there, a little bit of clover, but like I said, predominantly fescue. What I did was as I moved my shade structure and let the cows beat the ground up, I threw a little bit of crimson clover down, trying to see if I put it in the spring, would I see it in the fall? I got a little bit. So my fall grazing had a little bit higher, but it wasn't great. And I only put down on 30 acres, 30 pounds. So I wasn't putting down a lot of this stuff, and I put it down by hand, and I put it down in sections as we were grazing throughout the year. We did not have a lot of rain. We had a lot of drought. And so there was not a lot of great recovery from that, so that you're aware. So that's where we're at today. Now that you know where we're at today, before we can talk about how I'm going to fix it, we have to know what perfect looks like in my eyes to know where I want to go. This was a fresh farm, no fence. And I probably would recommend, if you're going to buy a farm, it's better to start from scratch, in my opinion, than it is to buy a rundown farm and try to fix everything. This farm, I have mentioned that in the past, and I've probably thrown stones a little harder than I should have. I've never mentioned the guy's name because it's not on him. I don't want to tear him down. I like the guy who I bought the farm from. And I've mentioned about how it's been neglected. There's a lot of stuff to fix here, but by no shape or means was this a piece of trash farm. So there's some really good things on this farm. There is water all over this farm. There's water lines everywhere. I'm one up. Now, they were broken spots. I had to do a lot of fixing, but we had water. So as we get to the pasture seed, if I had bare land tilled and starting today, what would I put in? Here is the key that you need to understand why I continue to say, do your own research. And why I say, don't take me at the gospel. One, because if it doesn't work for you, I don't want you blaming me, although it's not going to hurt my feelings if you say I don't know what I'm talking about. But I want you to understand why you're doing what you're doing, because if you do that, you will understand how to correct the measures that you're having. When I first started a farm about 15 years ago, we bought our first farm, and it was really, really rough, just like similar to this, but a little bit worse. And we had to log it, and there were ruts, and I had to till it. There was no way around it. It had to be tilled. It had to be land leveled. It had to have waterways put in. So we started with bare soil. In that, I went around and asked people, what should I put down? I asked 20 people, and I got 20 different answers. So in this, what I tell you today, you're going to get different answers if you ask different people. Understand, it's all somebody's opinion, and this is my opinion. How I picked my first farm was I went to the store where they were selling the seed, a local farm store, not a big box store, a seed store. And I said, what would you put down? And he showed me. And I had, mind you, done my research on what seeds I wanted, what ratios I wanted, the levels I wanted for what I was going to do. I had read all the Salatin books. I had read all those things. So I went in and said, what would you put down? It had cattle pasture mix right there on the bag. This is what I would put down. It was 95% Timothy. Timothy is a plant that requires a lot of nitrogen. It doesn't fix nitrogen. It doesn't have a lot of protein, so it requires, a lot of guys use Timothy and they buy a lot of fertilizer and put on it, which this guy also sold fertilizer. I'm not saying he gave you bad advice for that, but he showed me all the different mixes that he had and he recommended everything. And I looked at it all and read every tag. Then I said, if you could, what's the worst? What's the worst thing here that you have that I could put down? And he pointed to this bag with a horse on it and it said equine mix. And I looked at it and it was exactly what I wanted. It had orchard grass, it had rye, it had clovers, it had alfalfas, it had all kinds of stuff that I wanted in it. And it had Timothy at 5%, had zero fescue. fescue's prolific around here. It will come in naturally. You can get fescue from free if you unroll hay. So I didn't want any fescue. That is the seed I put down. The one he said, whatever you do, don't put down this one. That's what I bought. So to answer my question after my long babbling session, what is perfect? So to me, perfect is going to be a good level of protein that's throughout the entire year. You're going to have cool season and warm season grasses, but you want a good high level of protein. Around 20% would be really awesome in grass, because at least here, because I know I'm going to get fescue in that's not going to add a lot of that in for me. But get the right level of protein, get your legumes in there. And so for me, I like a lot of different legumes, whether that be cowpeas or different clovers, whatever it would be. There's lots of different seeds out there that you can choose from. The first thing I look at though with bare soil is, how do I get my protein level to the amount of protein and sugar, that ratio, accurate in my fields. Secondly, I look at nitrogen fixation. So when the cows put manure down, I've got to have something that will grab that nitrogen, that will feed the microbiology and help the nitrogen stay in my soils to feed everything. Clover and alfalfa does a great job at that. Thirdly, I look at, okay, if I have too much of a good thing, which alfalfa is, I can get bloat. I've never had bloat because I believe you can fight bloat with a good mineralization program, but I look at that. Do I have too much of this? And the fourth thing, which I think is the most important, even though it ended up fourth on my list, is diversity. I don't want a monocrop system. I don't want to put just rye and just clover down. I want as many different varieties of things that I can put down as possible to make that cow graze and get a wide variety of nutrition. If you're gonna move, you're gonna rotationally graze, they're gonna eat it all, but you want them to have a wide variety every day. You do not want to let them open graze and just select what they want. I'll give you some names of seeds. Perennial rye. Perennial rye is going to be my long-standing grass that I'm going to choose. It's comparable to fescue, and so it's the grass seed that I'm putting down on this pasture, and it's the same grass seed that I would start with. There are thousands of varieties, I'm sure, at least hundreds, lots of different varieties, depending on where you buy your seed. So I would start my base with about 4 to 5 pounds of a rye. Next, I'm gonna look at legumes and add clovers. I'm gonna try to pick 2 to 3 type of clovers. When you look at clovers, I look at height. Is it long and stemmy and tall? Is it low and creeping? I want both styles. Is it cool season, warm season? Does it go better into the heat? Does it stay better through the cold? I want different varieties that cover those different ranges. So for here, I have a crimson clover. I have another red clover that was from the company. They have some special company name. I got a white ladino clover, and then I got another white clover that was from this company that is their product name or whatever they have for it. So I have 4 different types of clovers we're putting down in this pasture. I'm also going to add some orchard grass with my rye. So my rye and my orchard grass poundage is about the same. I guess I need to give you the poundage on the clover. Clover, I went 2 pounds to the acre for each of the type of clover. So that's going to be 8 pounds of clover I'm putting to the acre here. When I'm putting that 4 or 5 pounds of rye, I'm also going to put 4, 5, 6 pounds of the orchard grass. That's going down here too, but that's also what I would have done had I started with bare soil. Start looking at my small seed stuff. So chicory, I added chicory specifically because I have fescue. So chicory has good tannins. I'm not an expert on why chicory is great. This is recommended from the Grass Nerd, my friend Danny Loosecamp. He does a very good job, but I've added chicory. It is a good thing. So chicory and plantain are 2 things that you can add. You can also add things that will break down over time for brand new soil that I wouldn't add today. So if you have fresh soil, you might look at a tillage radish, some kind of a, radish that goes down in the ground, or a horseradish, or different things that go down in there. There's all kinds of those kind of products. And so a tillage radish, a groundhog radish, something that would fall into that, you could add those in. They will graze. There is leaves that come. They will graze from them. You could add a kale. You can add something like that that will break down, but it's an annual. So it's going to be there to help you the first year, but it's going to break down and add carbon to your ground. Lastly, in the mix, which I don't have any here because I've done my soil sample, you're going to do a soil sample prior to this, and you're going to add things that your soil needs at the same time. So you're tilling and broadcasting or drilling. You're going to add whatever you need. You may need a starter fertilize. So I don't use synthetic fertilizers here, but if I was at bare ground and I had really poor soils, I would start with a starter fertilize based off of my soil sample. You will also add some gypsum, you can have these pasture softeners or sweeteners. There's all kinds of other things like that, but that all falls under the realm of soil amendments. And so those are going to need to be added right at the time that you seed your pastures. If you're at bare soil, those are not being added when I am frost seeding my seed into my pasture. So I've given you the seeds. The last thing is, where do you buy your seed? And so there are a lot of good seed companies out there, and I'm going to tell you what I bought and then tell you the recommendation. My recommendation is that you find somebody semi-local. So I'm at the very bottom of Ohio, but I have bought seed from Columbus, which is in the middle of the state, if you're familiar. So look at a map. But it's a couple hundred miles away, and 2.5, 3 hours away from us. Columbus is, but there's a guy up there named David Brandt. If you're in Ohio, I like his company. I've bought seed from him before. It was very good, but you want to buy from somebody local. You don't want to buy seed from out in California if you're in New England. Seeds are from the local area. Stay as local as possible is a recommendation. It's my opinion. I have bought seeds from Canada before for specific things. I put in hairy vetch in the past to add winter protein. It worked pretty well. It just does not last very well here. And that's what you'll find. If you buy seed that's far away from you, it may last for a little while because you put it in, but it's going to quickly die off and the natural seeds from your area will take over. And so that's why I tell you to stay local. How local? So I will tell you, this year I bought from Iowa. Iowa is not necessarily local to Ohio. I bought this off of a recommendation from the Grass Nerd because he buys from the same company. They had very good seed, very good customer service. They were right on time when I asked them to ship it. It was here. The price was great. The seed quality was super high. I could tell everything about this company is top notch. I will mention them. Their name is Welter Seed. And honey, I guess they have honey there too, but I only bought seed. So I'll put a picture up. Here's their company. This is obviously the first time I've used Welter Seed. They did not pay for this video. They did not give me any free seed. I don't know anything other than them except for my experience with them on this one transaction. And obviously, I don't know how well their seed has done in my pasture thus far. This is the furthest I've ever bought seed away that I would recommend. So Iowa is very similar in the geothermal range that we are, where this seed came from. But this is further than I would like. If it was my choice, I would try to stay within 200 miles of where you live for the seed company, if you can get a good seed company. But on the recommendation, I'm going to try this out. We'll see how it goes. But as far as advice from me, that's the advice I'm giving you, is to stay close. Lastly, there's some things that I have never done that I am intrigued by that I'm going to recommend to you so that you can be intrigued. Maybe do the research, maybe talked about it. So I have watched some other guys, Stony Brook Farm on here, Stony Ridge Farm, sorry, Josh over there. He sprays this, I'm going to say chemical, but it's not a chemical, it's natural. So it's a soil additive. He sprays it as a liquid. It goes down as a concentrate, and it adds to the microbiology. So he is literally spraying microbes on his grass and on his soil because he has such poor soils. It builds the microbiology up in the ground. Microbiology, some people say you talk about sequestering carbon. That's the whole idea with pasture grazing and what we're doing. Some people say once you sequester the carbon, the maximum amount of carbon for your farm. It's a lie. They cannot. Cows are death. Cows are killing the planet. And this will not work for long systemic savior of our earth. The microbiology is what makes that a lie. So the truth is that this will happen for centuries upon centuries. As long as our microbiology in our soil is good, we will continue to sequester carbon and make cleaner air year after year after year. And cow farts are not killing our planet, and cows are tasty. I may catch some heat for that one. I threw that out there, right? In the middle of this seed video. I am not for factory farming. Do factory farming have an excess of emissions and sequester very little, if any, carbon? Yes. Does farming like this harm the earth? No. I am making my planet better. I am making my farm better. I am making the ground better by doing what we are doing. And you can too by selecting the correct pasture mixes, pasture seeds, and building the microbiology of your soil so that you can sequester carbon year after year after year. This could save the planet, if you believe that, I guess. So, and when I say that, I mean, if you believe this planet is just gonna turn into a ball of fire and waste away, which I believe is gonna happen. Don't believe it's gonna happen in my generation. I believe it's biblical. So when Jesus comes back, all that stuff, if you want to know more about that, talk to a preacher that knows more than me, but I'd be glad to talk to you about it. Email me. But I don't believe our planet is going to die and crush away because of cows. It's going to happen when God says it's going to happen, and he's in control. That's my ultimate belief. If you don't like that, watch another channel. I don't know. I got to stand for what I believe in. And that's what I believe in. Sorry, on a little soapbox here. Just tripped and broke my ankle on my soapbox. Pasture seed. There you go. Well, there you have it. That is the video on pasture seed. I do want to let you know it's my opinion. These are my opinions, proven over time and experience. I've developed these opinions based on what I'm doing and the success or many failures that I've had. So I hope this video helps you in that nature. If you are new to homesteading and farming, and you are new to setting up a pasture, I will tell you, consult an expert. I don't care if you have to pay them. Find somebody that is doing what you want to do and offer to pay them to come help. Somebody local. It's so valuable to have somebody to bounce ideas off of and to have them look at what you're doing and to give quality advice to them. Just to you, I'm sorry. Make sure, one, they're local. Two, they're doing what you want to do. A big ag guy is not a bad thing. Those guys are very knowledgeable. Some guys who are in the big ag industry that are paid for by Ohio State here in Ohio, they have that thought. Now they critique themselves to meet farmers that are doing other things. They have that knowledge as well, but they have this knowledge. If they can critique their knowledge or twist their knowledge and advice to help you in what you're doing, it's worth every penny. I would say that $100 or $150 or $300 even is going to be money well spent to step your farm years ahead. If you do this wrong, it could set you back. So there you have it. Use the advice how you want to use it. Research other things. Read books. Consult somebody local. If I can help you, please let me know. If you're local, I'll be glad to help you in any way I can. I am not an expert, but this is just what I've learned over time. Thanks for watching.